Hello. This is a presentation that goes over the slides that were provided during the parent meeting at Monticello Middle School on standards reference reporting. As you may be aware, the middle school as well as the rest of the district transitioned to standards reference reporting in the fall of 2018, or the fall of this school year. And so we wanted to provide information on the general philosophy of why the district went this direction and also how it's being implemented at Monticello Middle School. The actual process itself started 11 years ago under the direction of Judy Jeffries, who was the director of the Department of Education in Iowa at the time, with the rollout of the Iowa Core Standards. And from that, Iowa also adopted the Common Core State Standards, the Next Gen Science Standards, and then developed Iowa Standards for Social Studies and Iowa Core Competencies for the Fine Arts, Physical Education, and other areas. So within that, we started thinking as a district, what do we really need to do to ensure that we're aligning to these as it's required? And we decided the best way to align ourselves to these standards was to start ensuring that we instruct and assess by them and then report out or grade according to standards. And so we spent the last 6 years, 5 to 6 years, as a district in professional development, developing a standards reference reporting system from assessment to scales, to separating knowledge and behavior. So these slides are basically information about the overall philosophy and how we are implementing. And the first step in that is to really get clear on what the purpose of grading is. So Monticello Middle School believes the purpose of grading is to communicate academic achievement at any particular point in time for a student. It reflects what the student knows and can do in relationship to content and learning goals, separating out things such as behavior, extra credit, that don't necessarily reflect the learning in the classroom. And then those things that are reported out or graded are defined by the Common Core or the Iowa Core Standards. We all know that grading is an essential component to learning. We can learn without being given a grade. Teachers can teach without giving a grade, and students can learn without giving a grade. Just as we can as adults learn things in our job without being evaluated on them. Nobody's telling me right now that I'm getting an A+ for doing great work in my job. I can learn the skills needed to be successful in my job without being given a grade. What is essential to the learning process is checking for understanding. We want to diagnose where kids are in learning the curriculum and then provide them feedback. It kind of goes along with the fact that the assessments in the learning process really don't matter. It's what you do with the information after an assessment is given. So an example of that would be the secret to being successful at weight loss isn't buying a really good scale. The secret to successful weight loss is taking the information that's given or the assessment from that scale and then changing what you do in order to continue to lose weight. So the scale itself isn't the most important thing. It's what you do with the information once you receive it. And that really is truly the purpose of grading, is providing information to students, parents, and other educators about where a student is in the learning process, and then doing something with that information. So what sometimes has happened traditionally in the past is things like learner behavior could inflate or deflate a grade. Extra credit could be something that has nothing to do with actually learning course content that could inflate a grade. So we wanted to take a little bit of a look at that. And so here's a question. We have a 9th grade foods class, Foods 1, and the question is, who would you want to cook for you? You've got Sally, who's at 58% and is failing the course, and Johnny at 99% at an A and is passing the course. So really, what you would look at here is, geez, I would really want Johnny to cook for me because clearly he knows the content and he's passing the course. But as we dive into the grade book, it may show us a completely different story. So we're looking into the teacher grade book for Foods 1. We have Sally's grades here and Johnny's grades here. When we dive into Sally's, what we can see is she's not doing so well on the homework assigned for this class. She hasn't turned in the homework here, it's missing, and here her homework was incomplete, receiving F's for both the homework. But when it comes to the cooking lab for the first unit, she does quite well. In fact, she gets 48 out of 50 points in the traditional system, which would be an A. She doesn't complete any of the extra credit, and once again is struggling to get homework done. Here, she's gotten some of the homework done, receives a B-, and then homework once again is missing and not completed. but is showing a deep level of understanding when it comes to actually knowing the course content via assessment through cooking labs. She seems to know really and understand the content of Foods 1 and what she needs to do, but isn't demonstrating that through homework. And then extra credit, once again, is not done. She's then asked to make a meal at home and report out on that. That also is not done and is receiving an F. So when you look at Sally's overall grade book, what it's really telling me is she does understand and is able to apply the skills and knowledge and the content of the course through labs and assessment, but it's not showing that she's able to get homework done and completed. And here we have Johnny, who is doing all the homework, so we think it's Johnny doing all the homework. But when it comes to the cooking labs, he's failing. He's not able to apply the knowledge and skills from the course content in a way that he could successfully show that he understands and is proficient. He does extra credit, which we're not really sure what that is, does well on the homework once again, but receives a D- or a 30 out of 50 on the next cooking lab, once again showing he does not have a strong understanding of the course content, knowledge, and skills, and able to show a level of proficiency higher than a D-. Once again, he completes the extra credit and does the meal from home. So what is this gradebook really telling us? Originally, we thought we wanted Johnny to cook for us, but I'm not so sure I would eat a meal that Johnny is cooking. However, for Sally, I certainly would. So what's getting in Sally's way of doing well, and what's inflating Johnny's grade? Well, we can look at a lot of different things. Is it actually the learning and the course content that she's struggling with for Sally? And it's not. She seems to actually know and understand the content. Parental support. Is there a piece here we're missing? Does she not have the support at home to be able to get homework done? Are there other things that are getting in her way, such as socioeconomic status? Is she having to work a second job to supplement the family income? Is she responsible for care of younger children in the home, such as siblings or other family members that are living with them? Is it compliance or behavior where she's just not demonstrating that compliance in order to get homework done and handed in? So what do these grades really represent? Is Sally being punished for life circumstances, and is Johnny being rewarded for not knowing the content? In Sally's case, we really don't know. What we do know is that she does understand and shows a high level of proficiency when it comes to labs and assessment, but is not doing so well in terms of homework completion. On the other hand, Johnny isn't showing that he really knows a whole lot when it comes to assessment through labs, but is doing well on the homework. And sometimes maybe we're questioning, is Johnny really doing the homework, or is he getting support from maybe a friend? We don't know. And so what standards reference reporting does is it takes out a lot of that gray area and clears the water. So a lot of times when it comes to extra credit and homework completion and things like that, it can muddy the waters and not give us a really accurate picture of what a student knows and is able to do. So here's what we believe is in middle school that standards reference reporting will do for us. It will more accurately assess student achievement in terms of academics. It'll clearly communicate learning goals to all stakeholders, meaning students, parents, other educators. Develop more self-directed and intrinsically motivated learners. Because now we're really talking about the learning. We're not talking about whether or not a student is able to pass a class or show with a minimum proficiency of a D. We're really talking about what does a student know and is able to do. And it's really about learning, where extrinsic motivation would have came from getting that A. Now we want to take it a little bit deeper with kids, like really what do you know and what are you able to do? And how do you want to learn and what do you want to learn more of? It'll better address the needs of all students. Things that we're getting in Sally's way may not be getting in her way anymore in a standards reference system, and really that focus is on student learning, a deeper focus on what is a student actually know and able to do. As a middle school, we believe that a 4-point scale, which we'll get into in a little bit, enhances the validity and reliability of academic grades. Homework is now practice. It's essential for concept development, but not actually essential for overall grade calculation. A lot of our teachers would say in order to do well in a course, you need to do the practice and do the homework, which is very, very true. It's like shooting free throws. In order to become a good free throw shooter, you need to practice shooting free throws. You don't become good at it during a game, which you would consider the assessment. You become good at it by doing the practice. And that hasn't changed. It just isn't calculated into the overall grade anymore. Behavior is vital to student success and should be reported separately in the gradebook, which we now are doing through the employability skills. We'll get into that in a minute too. And academic grades should reflect academic achievement only. So, a standards reference system versus a traditionally based system. The true focal point that I've said before in a standards reference system is not about the grade, it's about the learning that's taking place for a student. In a standards-based system, students must be proficient in order to move forward. So I have to be proficient in the 7th grade standards to be able to move into the 8th grade standards. That's not what we're doing at Monticello Middle School. Monticello Middle School, as well as the rest of the district, is in a standards referenced system. We are referencing a standard when we're reporting out student proficiency. So teachers give students feedback about their level of proficiency in a particular content standard, and then we provide a system of enrichment if the child already seems to have a high level of proficiency on a standard, or we also provide a system of intervention if a student is struggling, giving students opportunities to relearn and reassess core content. And so we don't hold the child back from not knowing a proficiency level or having a high proficiency level on a particular standard. We intervene on their behalf because the priority standards that teachers have chosen for their courses are those that students need to know and be able to do in order to have success at the next level, meaning next level, whether that's the next course in a sequence, the next unit, the next level in terms of high school or even college. And then in a traditional system, we typically used a 100-point scale and external factors like extra credit, homework, class behavior that can inflate or deflate a grade, so they no longer reflect just the academic learning and content mastery. What we want is to take those things out in order for you to know as a parent what exactly is it that my child knows and is able to do. During the actual presentation itself, we showed some videos from Rick Romelli, which are great videos. You can Google him and his name on YouTube and find a lot of these videos. Monticello Middle School uses a 4-point scale, which we've discussed a little bit previously, where a 4 is mastery and a 0 is failure to provide evidence of learning. So a student has either failed to do something or they've turned it in or basically didn't know any of the content in an assessment. The employability skills are provided in a rubric that looks similar to this under the areas of participation, work, completion, behavior, and collaboration, where a student receives a score of a 1 through 3 and are able to demonstrate a level of proficiency. You may have seen this rubric at parent-teacher conferences as well. The overall grade in PowerSchool, and there's a video tutorial that you can look up on the district website if you're interested in looking at student grades and you're not sure how to do that within PowerSchool itself. But students, maybe this is a simplified example of a student report card or grade where there are 7 standards assessed in a course over multiple attempts or multiple assessments. And what PowerSchool does is it will take the mode score for that particular standard. For example, in the first standard, the mode score was a 2, and a 4. What PowerSchool will do is it'll take the highest of those 2 scores. Here the mode was a 2 and a 4, and that will be the overall grade. Teachers do have the ability to override that if they don't feel that that accurately reflects the level of proficiency for a student. So when you go in, you want to click on the tab that says Standards Grades, and you'll see all the standards for the course and how your student's scoring in terms of proficiency on those standards. Just a warning, your child is not going to like this. They may not like this system because it puts a greater amount of accountability and responsibility on the student themselves. They have to learn. They cannot do extra credit to do well. They have to know the content. They're held accountable for their learning. They're required to meet with teachers and make a plan for relearning and reassessment. They have to learn, unlearn, and relearn, study, and reassess. And in order to reassess, the homework has to be completed. Your child has a great deal more responsibility for their own learning within this system. And as I mentioned before, you can look up tutorials on your students' grades on the district website, and also it's been sent out over Messenger in case you're still unsure of how to do that. If you have any questions over standards reference reporting at Monticello Middle School, please feel free to contact Brent Meyer, Middle School Principal, or your child's teacher to have them help answer any questions you may have.